Yo, what's good people? Today we have another review. So last time I reviewed the Sanjuks V6. Today we have the Sanjuks V7, as you can see. The gold is insane. I actually prefer the gold over the blue. The gold is really nice when it hits the light. And also the capsule top is really nice. This is my favorite bat top now. It's just, yeah, I really like it. I also do have a Shuriken PCB as well, which kind of just cleans up wiring. As you can see, it's got like a, JLS style wiring. So yeah, very easy, and also acts as a switch plate to, make the switches more stable. We're going to look at tech specs. We're going to do a sound test. We're going to do play test, and I'm going to give my thoughts and feelings on the lever itself. A lot of people do say, what lever should I get if they're looking into Sanjuks levers? Should I get a Sanjuks V7 or should I get a Sanjuks V6? As said before, the Sanjuks, whatever lever style the Sanjuks is built on, it's going to be that on steroids. So for example, the V6 was a crown on steroids. Now the V7 is a Fanta style lever on steroids. It's just insane. Now I was talking before about different colors. Now I actually ordered something from Buttercade, which is very interesting. So this is a Squircle guide. As you can see, there is more of a square kind of guide rather than just a fully circle. Now this will help people find, diagonals easier, corners easier. So for me, I don't have issues finding corners on most levers. Now the Sanjuks V6, I did have problems finding corners at first. As I said, it is not a pick up and play lever. I wouldn't recommend it if you are a beginner. I would recommend the V7 more if you're a beginner. Now, if you're a beginner, you are probably gonna want to get something like, a Squircle guide, because it will help you at first identify corners and identify diagonals. Do me a favor, like, comment, subscribe. Liking will help with the algorithm, commenting will also help with the algorithm, and subscribing will let me know that you enjoy the content. Let's get into it. As said, we're going to follow the same review process. We're going to look at tech specs. The Sanjuks V7, the Sanjuks levers in general are not cheap, 128 USD, so they are not cheap by any means, but I think they are very much worth the price because, as said before, they are built like absolute tanks. You're not going to break these levers, honestly, even if you're heavy-handed. I haven't really seen anyone break these levers, break the shafts, break the bat tops. So, spending the extra money on the build quality, on the parts, for example, I think it's worth it for me personally. So the plate has many different fastening holes, so you can fasten this lever to Japanese style cases, to Korean style cases, pretty much any case that has the clearance. You do need to check the clearance as well, because these levers aren't small by any means. They're not huge, but they're definitely not small. So definitely check the compatibility. There are compatibility lists out there. So if you're worried that, this lever is not going to fit in your case, just look up a compatibility list and you should be fine. So as you can see, the V7 is newer than the V6 because the V7 is built upon the same materials and some similarities in the kind of, the switch spacing and the bobbin, but they are changed, which is disclosed here. So it says, building on the foundation of V6, V7 levers are mostly compatible with parts from V6 and features the following changes: hypertension rubber as the knee one, so it has that clear knee tension. It has a capsule top, as you saw at the beginning. The capsule top is amazing. I think it's my favorite, bat top. I also do have a more of a traditional kind of tapered bat top, and I tried it on the V7 and I switched back to the capsule top. The capsule top is really good. If you guys have not tried a capsule top, I really recommend it. It's really good. I feel like the control is just a little bit better. I don't know what it is. It just feels more, the characters feel a little bit more responsive, and I feel like I have more control over the lever itself with the capsule top as opposed to, a traditional bat top. Maybe that's just me because I have, small hands. So the capsule top for me felt more comfortable. According to the wording here, we can see that the switch spacing has been changed. Actually, the switch spacing on the V7 is slightly bigger than the V6. I felt like the corners on the V7 were easier to find. Now that's obviously because the switch spacing is bigger, so the corners naturally are going to be bigger. You can change how big the corners are in practice by changing the actuator size. So that's why they do offer, a 4-set actuator kit. You can change the actuator size if you feel like the corners are too difficult to find. You can just change the actuator size. So really the switch spacing isn't too important because you can just change how it feels with an actuator, with a different actuator size. So really, the actuator size and the switch spacing give the, the corner feeling. Now I felt like stock, using stock parts, corners did feel a little bit bigger on the V7 than the V6. Now I personally enjoyed it more, and that's why I said the V7 feels more like an all-round lever, whereas the V6 feels like a machine lever to me personally. Again, you're gonna have these collar options. Now these collars are actually Nylube material. Now these, because of the Nylube material, it just glides. It's just, Sanjuks levers are really good. If you haven't tried them, try them. If your friend has one, you know, see if your friend will let you borrow his lever or stick, or you can, you know, go and try it, because I really recommend you guys to try at least one, the V6 or the V7. For me personally, I like crown style levers, but for me, then using the V7, I think I prefer the V7 to use. For the majority of the cast, I prefer the V7 over the V6. Okay, this is what you get in the box. So obviously you do get the choice between a black capsule top and a white capsule top. Now I chose the white capsule top just because I prefer the aesthetics of the white capsule top, I suppose. The same anodized aluminium shaft, so 9mm shaft, same actuator size, 14.8. The bobbin is a little bit different. Now there's not a lot of information on the bobbin. It says V7 exclusive bobbin. Now I didn't feel any difference in the tension. Personally, I felt like the V6 does compress the tension a little bit, along with the kind of, you know, the housing and where the grommet sits. Now with the V7, I felt like the tension was being compressed slightly less than the V6. Now the V6 does slightly compress, but it's not as drastic as people are making it out to be online. Like I was worried because I don't like heavy tension levers. I like quite light tension, and for me it felt perfect to play on, just right, soft medium as it describes. Now the rubber grommet is a knee hypertension. I don't know what hypertension means, but it's the grommet you will find in the knee version 1. The knee version 1 for me stock felt a little bit too tough. Now that could just be because the rubber was new and it needed to be broken in and so on and so forth, but this rubber on the V7 didn't feel as heavy as the knee V1. Even though the V7 compresses the tension slightly, it felt lighter than the knee V1 for some reason. Again, stock, you are going to get that mid or full color circle guide. Now you can get different guides, so if you want a squircle guide, you can get that to kind of, if you're the type of person that rides the gate, circle guide might be a little bit difficult because it will be very difficult to tell where the corners are or when you've hit a corner by the collar, because it's circle, right? So there's no diagonal, there's no real kind of notches to help you figure out where you've hit a corner. Now you can get stuff like this, which is, this is a squircle. I'm not sure how great you can see that. I'm going to put it on the big screen in a little bit, but this is a squircle guide. Now that will make it easier for people to tell, you know, when they've hit corners and stuff like that. So you can get squircle guides, you can get obviously full color guides that will affect the throw and stuff like that. So I would say mix and match, experiment. This is the fun of, you know, Korean levers, is that you can mix and match, you can experiment, you can really find the perfect setup for you. So that is about it that you get in the box. Obviously you get the body, you get a spanner to tighten the capture top to the shaft, you get a dust washer as well, of course. So this is the package you get. Again, super premium. I love the parts. The Nylube collar is amazing. The capsule top is amazing. The shaft is just a shaft at the end of the day. I mean, it is what it is, you know? Okay, let's talk about the switches for a second. So the switches are Armron V6s. The V6s are kind of the best way I can put it is the V6s are stiffer than the V5s. Now the comparison I'm going to give is, imagine the Gersung A2s versus the Gersung A3s, right? The Gersung A3s are stiffer than the Gersung A2s, but they're more consistent. I'm not saying the Armron V6s are more consistent than the Armron V5s. That's not the case. They're just more stiffer. So the comparison between the Gersung A3s and the A2s is the comparison between the Armron V6 and the V5s. Mouthful, I know, but just know that these switches are quite stiff. You can just change the switches if you don't like it, but for me personally, I feel like these stiffer switches give a more consistent QCF and QCB kind of input. I personally do like the V6, and I'm very sensitive to how heavy a lever feels. Now the switches don't really affect how heavy the lever feels to me personally. So yeah, I really enjoy the Armron V6s. Okay, now we're in game. So as I said before, I think the Sanjuks V7 is a more versatile lever. I think it's more light to the touch. For me personally, I think the capsule top is amazing. It's really comfortable to use. Like, I think this capture top is my favorite by far. Yeah, I really like this lever. And actually, I find it easier to sidestep up into the background than the V6. I don't know why. I'm not sure if that's because of the switch spacing. Because obviously this is a different switch spacing to the V6. I'm not sure. I'm not sure why sidestepping would feel easier. For me, the lever feels just as smooth as the V6 for Mishimas. No issues doing inputs. Perfect electrics. Smooth wave dash. Yeah, this lever is really nice. I think for me, as I said, feels more versatile. I think easier to find corners. See? Much easier to find diagonals, I think, for me. See? Very consistent. So, yeah, as I said, the switch spacing might have something to do with that. I'm not too sure. But as I said before, you can just, if you find the diagonals are difficult to find for you, you can just use a bigger actuator to kind of offset the switch spacing style that they might use in the housing. Easy inputs. See? No issues. My famous words. Yeah, this lever is really, really enjoyable to use. I think it feels very smooth. The circle gate, for me, is not a problem to use just because, you know, I've been using levers for a few years. Not as my main controller, just for fun, but I still understand how levers work and how different, you know, gates work and collars work and stuff like that. So for me, using a circle gate is not the problem. There are options. There are options, obviously, if you are not comfortable using a circle gate just yet. You can get a squircle gate, which allows you to ride that gate. So again, all in all, to reiterate my opinion and thoughts on the V7, the V6 and the V7 are very, very similar levers. So if you're expecting a drastic difference, that's not the case. It's just the V6 and the V7 are based on different lever types. Now, the V6 is a crown on steroids, and the V7 is a Fanta on steroids, basically. They are both built like tanks. I just prefer the V7's kind of choices regarding control type. So, you know, you have capsule top, which I think this is the best thing about the lever, to be honest. The capsule top is excellent choice. Now, the switch spacing is obviously a little bit bigger, as we discussed before. Now, that will translate to easier to find corners, easier to find diagonals. Now, for me, it's not that much of a problem because I don't have that much of a problem to find diagonals once I've, you know, used the lever for a little bit of time. So with the V6, I did eventually figure out where the corners were, and then I didn't have any problems after that. So that's what I mean regarding pick up and play. The V7 is easier to pick up and play than the V6. With the V6, you might find some misinputs here and there, but eventually they will smooth out. V7, I think they are smoother from the get-go, from the jump, for me personally. My hands, the way my hand shape is, the V7 works a bit better off the mark. But I hope you enjoyed this Sanjuks V7 lever review.